A Celtic State of Mind has been named as one of 7 finalists in the Best International Podcast category at this year's Football Content Awards. We won the Best Football Podcast Award in 2018, and it is a real achievement to be finalists once again. Thank you all for your ongoing support over the last 3 years. If you have been enjoying our daily content, then feel free to vote for A Celtic State of Mind at footballcontentawards.com. I have added the link to the bio of this episode, and the instructions and further links are also on axom.net. You can also vote on Twitter by simply tweeting, I am voting for @AxomPod in @the_FCAs for hashtag Best Podcast. Thank you again for all your support. Welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Jim Simonette and PJ Corr. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Paul.
I'm intrigued, PJ. You've got a phenomenal book in front of me, a tome, and this book was given down to you. It was handed down to you. Tell us all about it. This is relevant to your story.
Yeah, well, sadly my uncle passed away when he was very, very young, my Uncle Joseph. And one of the things that actually got handed down to me was a book about a real life story, Pinya Thay, who was in Cambodia during the time of the genocide that went on there. It was a horrendous time between 1975 and 1979, where, if you're familiar obviously with the Second World War and how the Nazis went about their business, the Khmer Rouge were very, very similar to what they did to the Cambodian people. Babies, children, men, women suffered horrendous deaths. A whole generation was wiped out. Basically, they targeted anyone with an education, so a teacher, a doctor, basically, because they thought if they could wipe out people with education, there would be nobody there to challenge them. And then back then, obviously, with no internet, people living out in the countryside had no other way of finding information, so the Khmer Rouge deliberately targeted educated people. Phnom Penh at the time, the main city in Cambodia, they were evacuated out the whole city, and they basically said, pack for 3 days, the Americans are coming to bomb, we need to stay safe. So these people packed up, assuming they would return in 3 days. They were never to return. The whole city was evacuated. These people were out into the countryside. If you disagreed with the Khmer Rouge, if you found out to be an educated person, you were literally hacked to death. Horrendous things, stories about how they killed babies and things like that are awful. And this book kind of stayed with me. As you can imagine, this was one man's struggle, how he lost his whole family, including his wife, children, wife, grandparents. And the Cambodian people are a very family orientated people. It goes through his struggle as he literally loses a family member one by one. His struggles as he escapes into the jungle, how he navigates the jungle. He loses his wife in the jungle and eventually makes his way to Thailand. Sadly, if anyone obviously knows a bit of history of Cambodia, you'll know it's not an uncommon story. There's a lot of books out about Cambodia, and the people who have told their life stories are very, very similar, sadly. So that book kind of stayed with me, and that was probably easily 15, 20 years ago. Little did I know that I would have a chance to kind of visit Cambodia a couple of times and be able to kind of meet a lot of people, and people even whose family were sadly harmed and murdered by the Khmer Rouge as well. So yeah, it was interesting even back then that this book was going to play a part.
It's pivotal in your story that you're going to tell today, PJ, and I think it's important because there are a lot of people who won't be aware of the situation and the genocidal nature of that going back to the 1970s. You have that book. You're born into a Celtic family. Tell me about your Celtic upbringing.
Yeah, it's very similar, obviously, to people you've spoken to before. It's born into a Celtic family. Born and raised in the Celtic family, everything that the club's about. Going to the games with my dad and my brother and my granddads, uncles, cousins, friends. My first season going to the games, my mum told me I was too young to go before that, but it was the centenary season. As my dad always said, that would be a season that Celtic fans would forever talk about. He wasn't wrong. So that was me first going to the games, would be the centenary year. We used to go in the Cairn Celtic supporters bus that left out of Springburn, the big northern area club down there. Mm-hmm. My granda Matt Corr was the president there and ran the kind of bus for a long, long time. So we had a strong connection to the bus. Centenary season, obviously going to games, memories always walking to the stadium with my dad. My granda would always slip me the pound coin to go get my match programme, which is probably my fascination of collecting programmes comes from now, started back then. And then going inside the stadium, being lifted up to sit in the barrier, always having that fear of a 1-on-1 or a player hitting the shot that as soon as the goal went in, you were going to kind of get knocked off. We always kind of stood just to the left of the Celtic end, just to the left of the goal, which is exactly where my season ticket is now. So we've kind of literally never left from there. As I say, we always kind of go to the games. My dad's obviously a huge Celtic fan, and that's one of the greatest gifts he's passed on to me. My mum was into football as well. She used to go to the games with her granda, and the two of them have always been very supportive in my kind of football career and put up with every birthday and every Christmas. What do you want? Celtic stuff. That was the answer. But we moved up to Aberdeen, obviously, when my dad's worked when we were younger as well. So a familiar weekend for us used to be me playing football for my primary school, St Peter's, in the morning, whole family, 2 dogs, thrown into the car, everything for the weekend, a mad drive down to Glasgow, drop my mum and my sister off in Partick, we go visit my gran and grandpa, me, my dad and brother, a mad dash over to Springburn to get onto the bus to go to the games. And that became the norm for us, and we'd spend the weekends in Glasgow to get to the Celtic games, and big effort from mum and dad obviously every weekend, and even making sure I was still getting my football as well. Moved back down to Glasgow. Was lucky as I got older, you get a chance to kind of go to some of the away European games, and it's not always so much about the games, it's about the people you get to meet and the people you get to go with and the people you meet over there. Absolutely fantastic. And then when I was kind of younger, we actually moved to Canada as well. So it was a whole new different experience of being a Celtic supporter. It was very difficult because I would describe myself as very much a homebird. I thought I would live and die in Glasgow, so that was very difficult. And one of the main things was family, friends and Celtic. I won't tell you what order, but couldn't imagine not going to Celtic games when that's what you're brought up in. But mum and dad convinced me to try it. You never know. And so I did. But in my head, I was going over to try it for 2 weeks and come home and say, look, I tried it. But we ended up joining the Burlington Celtic Supporters Club, which is not too far outside Toronto. Joined the committee of the club there, and it was fantastic. I think we had like 80, 100 members at one point, and it's a strange experience getting up at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning to go to the games. But Celtic Rangers games would kick off 12 o'clock here, so it'd be a 7 o'clock in the morning kick off over there. You would arrive at the club 6 o'clock, 6:30, and the Bucky mob, as it's called, would already be out in the car park starting their pre-game drinks. But that helped a lot, being part of that, and I'm sure kind of fans over there will tell you as well. The first year was difficult in Canada. You're very, very homesick. So to have that, you go into this bar, and all of a sudden you're closed off in the world, and it's like your own wee part of Glasgow. Mm-hmm. And we had barbecues, we had sing-songs, we had parties, the St Patrick's Day nights, things like that. And all of a sudden you don't feel so far away from home when you have that. You're sitting after the game, you're sitting having a chat, and guys who have been over there for 40 years, all of a sudden the accent comes back and it's thick and strong, and you sit in your stories. I could sit and listen to Celtic stories all day, so that's right up my street. So again, that was a different way of being a Celtic supporter. Never gave up my season ticket because I refused to give up my season ticket, so I would pay for my season ticket every year and maybe get to use it once. We'd still find a way to come over for the big games. I think one of my favourite Celtic games was the day we beat Manchester United in the Champions League, the Nakamura one. Well, it was special because that was actually my brother's 30th birthday that night, and I was working in the school, and I'd obviously planned to come over for this game, and I had to make the phone call to the school the night before saying I had an emergency in Glasgow that I had to come home for. So we came on the plane and came over for that. So, but it was great because, we're in Canada and all the family was together. It was my brother's special birthday and we were all at the Celtic game, and it turned into one of those incredible nights. People talk about the free kick, which was exceptional. But I always remember in my memory the noise being even bigger when Boric saved that penalty. I'll never forget that noise, because you're kind of sitting there thinking, here we go, typical Celtic again, shocking penalty, not even a penalty. And I think they said, was it Sean Maloney's arm maybe on the wall or something? But that save was incredible. So still made it back for kind of nights like that. And then moved back, already been back to Glasgow now for 10 years. So I've had a lot of different experience being a Celtic supporter, from travelling a lot to living abroad, living in Aberdeen, things like that. So yeah, I've travelled far and wide, but being in the States, being in Canada was brilliant because you got to go to the games in the States. I remember meeting up with family in New York when we played in the Giants Stadium over there, travelling to Philadelphia when we played Manchester United, and those kind of trips really made you feel part of the club, even though you were so far away. So
it's quite sad, unfortunately, because of the fixture list with the Champions League and the way that pans out, that Celtic can't go over and visit North America like they used to back then. I mean, is that something that you think the club will ever return to, go over and have a big match at least once every pre-season?
Look, it's like you said, I think it's dictated to by how early we need to start the campaign. And trust me, the attraction of Celtic is, as we all know, it's huge over there, but it's such a reward, I think, for the fans over there. And there's fans worldwide, don't get me wrong, everywhere, Australia, and it'd be great to go to all these places, but such is the fan base in North America. Honestly, I couldn't describe the feeling to you. Every excitement imagined just for a friendly, but it's because it was your chance to go see, and you would tell your friends that you were pals with, no, I'm going to take you to a Celtic game, and they would just stand in awe, with the Celtic fans bouncing, the singing, and oh my God, this is amazing, this is awesome, and we want to go to Glasgow and see a game. And from a PR exercise for the club, it's phenomenal, financial, phenomenal, but most importantly, as a fan who's experienced living over there, it's just fantastic. It's like, you're going to the game, it's 100 degrees heat, which is obviously different, but it's fantastic. And you go to the players' hotel room, you're like a kid again, and we bumped into some of the players over the years, and I think some of them, particularly the foreign players, can sometimes a bit taken aback. We're in America, we're in Canada here, what are all these fans doing? And Celtic games will sell out everywhere. It was brilliant, but I think that will be dictated by the kind of Champions League qualifiers. But if there was ever the opportunity, I would hope that the club would be all over it.
I think it's an interesting point that PJ makes, Jim, where he's talking about the people you come into contact with through Celtic. Celtic is a state of mind, it's a way of life. But for me, for example, you and I know each other because of Celtic.
Correct, yeah. And
that happens wherever you go. You go to Canada and you come together because of Celtic.
It's a magnet.
It is a magnet.
Mm-hmm. The Celtic support and the Celtic people throughout the world, it is a magnet. They're just pulled together, and there's a great phase. They're actually like water. They just flow. They flow, and they flow out, then they come back in again. It's like a tide, isn't it? They meet wherever the tide comes in and wherever the tide goes out. Celtic fans throughout the world just seem to meet up, and it's that magnet. They're all drawn together.
Absolutely, and it's powerful. It is so powerful. You're talking about there in Canada and how a community of people can go into a wee bar and it's almost as if you're in Glasgow again.
It's amazing.
And the thing that is the magnet is Celtic bringing you all together. It's fantastic to hear that from a different perspective. You come back to Scotland. When did you come back permanently?
Well, 2007, scary enough, so already 13 years ago. Mm-hmm. Some would argue not bad timing, we're thinking of the last kind of 9 years or so, etc. But I kind of came back basically to go to finish university. Katrine, who I'd met over there, she came back with me as well, and she'd never visited Scotland before. She was obviously well educated in Celtic by that point. But I came back to kind of finish to go to university. I'd always loved working with young people, and I'd always knew that I'd wanted to teach. But I think when I started university once and then twice and left again, I just wasn't ready for it. I'd obviously had a bit of kind of travelling to go do and learn a bit more and see a bit more of the world first, and I was ready at that point, and that was the main kind of reason for coming back then. So kind of went through university, etc., qualified as a teacher. Still had the season ticket, obviously, so was still going to the games as much as I can, and it was so still kind of going to all the games with my family all the kind of way through that.
You're talking about the last 9 years almost a decade of dominance. What we have witnessed in the last few years of being domestically dominant, winning every single trophy. I mean, when you go back to the centenary, I was the same. I started going in the centenary year. You thought, we win doubles every other year, and then it didn't happen for 9 years. How much are you enjoying it now that we are, by far the top dogs in Scottish football?
Paul, there's no words really. That you and me are similar then. So I tell you a wee story, and I've no idea. I've got a terrible memory, but for some reason, anything with Celtic or wee stories kind of stick in my head. And so going to Celtic games, the centenary, the first song I always knew was Championes, and you'd walk into Celtic Park, going up the stairs, and you'd hear Happy Birthday to Celtic, and that was normal. That was normal. And I always remember it must have been kind of early 1990, and I was in the car with my dad. I was sitting in the back, and we were driving through Partick, and I remember saying to my dad, I says, "Dad, why don't Celtic sing Championes anymore?" And my dad turned and says, because we're not the champions anymore. And that was, what do you mean? I was like, I don't understand that. But I was certainly going to learn what that meant for kind of through the 90s. We had nothing but the stories from my dad and my grandads. I mean, I remember sitting with my great-grandpa Lowry and him sitting telling me about his favourite player, Jimmy McGrory. And again, why do I remember that? I was only 7 or 8. Again, it's funny how these things kind of stick with you. And, we'd read about the Lions, your Jimmy Johnstons, your great players. And all of a sudden, here we were, our reality was nothing, and we grew up living in fear of players like Brian Laudrup, and seeing Rangers dominate everything, and it was hard to take. It was horrible. And then Martin O'Neill, I think, came along. I think a few people you spoke to before, and I think Martin O'Neill changed the mindset of our club and our supporters. And that's anyone knows that's a massive barrier. Any coach, any sports person knows what a barrier that is. But he changed the mindset, and he made us believe again that we could return to where we belonged. And that was the first era. I remember thinking, wow, we've got some players here. And probably like you, I grew up, Paul McStay was the only Celtic hero that we knew, other than Peter Grant, who was my absolute idol. But Paul McStay, but maybe too young, maybe similar like yourself, to really appreciate that. But then all of a sudden you're old enough and you experience and you have world-class player like Henrik Larsson, and you think of the strike force of Sutton and Hartson and European Cup winner and Paul Lambert and Stelian Petrov, and all of a sudden we had this team that went to a European final. And I'll never forget that, because all I'd ever heard was my granddad's stories of Lisbons and seeing the pictures of my granddad in Lisbon, and my dad's still been upset to this day that my granddad never took him to Lisbon, and all of a sudden here was me and my dad and my brother going to Seville. And a side note of that, I remember before we played Liverpool in the second round, UEFA released tickets for fans, and I actually went on and bought 6 for like €122 for 6 tickets. And of course everyone was having a field day. You're an idiot, spending all that money buying 6 tickets, you're a joke, all this. And then I remember the night we qualified, we were in McGinley's pub in Kirkintilloch, and let's just say I never bought a drink that night. I was everybody's best pal all of a sudden, and but it was nice being able to have those tickets and give one to my granda and my cousin from Ireland as well. It was an incredible experience. And then you think that's the height, and we get so close, and you kind of back and forth a wee bit, and then all of a sudden, we're living through our own 9 in a row. We only ever kind of read about that in books and watched that in videos, and you hear about all the famous players, the Lions, the Quality Street gang throughout the 9 in a row, and all of a sudden now you've got to step back and think, we're watching our own players that people will read about in 30, 40, 50 years' time. Your Callum McGregors, your Scott Browns, your James Forrest, you're watching living legends, and it's important to take a minute to step back. And it's also quite emotional, I think, as well, because I think you remember a lot of people that, as Celtic fans, we spoke a bit earlier, but it's people that maybe are with you at the start of that journey, but are maybe not here to celebrate with us now, and people who are maybe lived through the first 9 in a row and are not here with us now, and that's a great Celtic bond. And I think you always remember them. One thing I always remember is every time we won the league, and my granda sat next to us, my granda Corr, would always turn and shake a hand and say congratulations. And I always thought, we're all part of it.
But you said an important thing there, PJ, that every different people in your life has all been part of the journey. When you started going to the football, going to see Celtic, right up to today, there's been different parts of that journey. Some people's got off the journey for various reasons. Some people have come on the train for the next part of the journey, and there's more to come. So well done for that. That's brilliant, but your grandpa as well. Excellent.
Yeah, so
Excellent.
It's true though, and not alone. I think we've all kind of got those stories, and so I think I would say to every Celtic fan, just step back and take a moment as to how big this is. Don't get focused too much on the 10 right now. Enjoy the 9 for what it is. Now the 10 will be here before we know it, so but take a minute and enjoy the 9 and raise a glass to those that will be looking down at us from up above, so
without a doubt. Just on the point you make about the memory of that fantastic European night with Nakamura, and we have enjoyed some brilliant European nights. I mean, even last season, the Lazio games, for example. Growing up in the 90s, I never thought I would ever see a 9-in-a-row Celtic team in my lifetime. I also didn't think I'd ever have seen Celtic back in a European final. But the game, not only the game, but Celtic have changed so much to allow that to happen. But even since 2003, 17 years down the line, the game's changed so much since then, on a financial level, more than anything else. Are you a great believer of this fairy tale element to Celtic to suggest that we might dine out at that top table again at some point in the future? Because if you'd asked me in the 90s, would Celtic ever win 9 in a row, I'd have said no chance. But it's happened. Do you think, with the progress that's been made, maybe with the great level of the situation we're in at the moment, PJ, with regards to global economies levelling out in many, many ways, will Celtic ever be in a situation, or do you think that can't happen while we exist in Scottish football?
How can you be a Celtic supporter and not believe in fairy tales, would be my first kind of answer to that. Look back at everything we've overcome, from day one. Look at the people that have risen through the ranks at our club. If you'd asked us through the 90s, would you ever think Celtic, you would have settled for winning a trophy? My first cup final was in 1990, lost to Aberdeen in penalties. My second cup final was Wraith Rovers in 94. The first cup final I got to see his win was 90-95 with Pierre Van Hooijdonk. I'm still not forgiven my dad for not taking me to the Centenary Cup final, but that's another story. So do I believe it? Look, if you have the mindset that says it'll never happen. So let's be realistic. We're not going to buy our way. We're not going to spend money that's going to allow us to compete and win Champions League or get to UEFA Cup finals. If we're going to do it, we're going to have to do it the traditional Celtic way, our own way. We're going to have to come up with a method where, we've got McGregor this now, you've got Forrest this now. If we're going to do it, we're going to have to do it ourselves. So we're going to have to come up with a system, and we have produced a lot of great players in recent years. But we're going to have to come up with a system similar to the Ajax model, who Tommy Burns was a great believer in, who visited several times. Ajax have got a fantastic youth system. They develop players first and foremost. They don't tell a kid at 5 years old you're a striker, and that kid stays a striker their whole life. Up until about the age of 13, 14, they can play any position. It's not until they're older decide a way. We're going to have to do it ourselves. And who says it won't come true? Who says what's going to happen in 5-10 years? You're right. We never thought we would do 9 in a row. Did you ever think we'd do a treble? No. Did people say that's impossible? People say that's impossible and never going to achieve anything. So why not live the dream? Why not say one day, who can say what's going to happen in 10, 15, 20 years' time? That's not going to happen. Would you believe at the beginning of 2002, 2003 that Martin O'Neill would have led us there? Only takes 1 or 2 players to bring another group of players up to a different level. Henrik Larsson, you could argue, done that. He was that one magical player that brought us up. What's not to say we don't get lucky one year and get 2 or 3 absolute diamonds of a Henrik Larsson up front and a Van Dijk at the back and all of a sudden. No, never say never, because if you say never, it's never going to happen. You need to have that mindset. And that fairy tale, certainly, we're a fairy tale club. You can't deny that. So who's to say? Who knew 11 boys for Glasgow will go win a European Cup one day?
I like that state of mind, Jim. And, we're talking about 11 boys for Glasgow. Jimmy Johnstone, close to your heart. We're talking about young kids playing football. You see them. I mean, this institution, the Jimmy Johnstone Academy, how many kids now have gone through the doors of this park here at Cardiff?
There's been a couple of thousand players played with Jimmy Johnstone, but through the park here at Cardiff Park, since we've taken over the pavilion and the park itself, keeping the upgrade here. I mean, you're talking 30,000, 40,000 young people played here, which is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. It's incredible. And in terms of talent, we're talking about doing it yourself, and I think you're absolutely spot on when you say that, PJ. Celtic won't be able to compete toe-to-toe financially, so you do it yourself, you do it through the academy, you do it through the talent. Do you see it week in, week out, under normal circumstances? Can we do it with Scottish talent?
Definitely. If it was there before, it can still be here today. The difference, obviously, back in the 60s and the great players in the 60s and even before it, all they had was football. Kids have got different hobbies and whatever, but the ones who want to make it are the ones who work hard at it. You know, through this lockdown as well, you look at these kids, the ones that's it, working on their touch and working on their fitness. Don't need to do anything special. The touch and the fitness, short touch, the long passes, pinging it with the left, the left. No, the right. If you're good in the right, that was Tommy. That was Tommy's philosophy. Working that left all night. Working the left, but no, you can work on it. So that's what they could be doing just now. Working the right foot, working the left foot, till they don't have a weak foot. Short touches as well. Left foot, 500. Gordon Strachan made a marvellous point a couple of years ago regarding the pro youth. Why would a kid sit in a bus for Glasgow and go all the way up to Aberdeen and get 10 minutes when he could stay down here in Glasgow or Edinburgh, wherever it may be, and hit the ball 1,000 times, 1,000 touches off the wall, 1,000 touches with his friend, rather than sit and he's coming on the park and he's maybe getting 5 touches if he's lucky. So I generally do think the talent is still here, and I think it'll all come back to fruition again.
Here's hoping. Now, we're talking about youth talent, developing youngsters, giving them opportunities. You're involved in that in a few different ways, PJ. You're a teacher first and foremost. Has that always been your calling? Is that something you always aspire towards?
I always aspired to play first team for Celtic, but yeah.
Didn't we all?
Didn't we all, yeah.
Still waiting for the phone call.
You all round, guys.
But no, I think my vocation in life was always to work with young people in a kind of teaching sense, and being a teacher's, like it is being a coach, it's a privilege. It is genuinely a privilege, because you get to help young people grow up. You know, you kind of help to kind of shape their views and help them through difficult times, which is one of the greatest privileges you can have as well, is to help a young person, indeed any person who's going through a difficult time. And you know, that I always knew that's what I was going to do. I think I did always knew that. I wasn't ready to do it straight away from school. I had other things to do, but no, I love what I do. I love working with the young people, and there's not a day in my job where I do not laugh. They do not make me laugh. Honestly, their banter is awful at times, but they do make me laugh, and that's what it's all about. Teaching, like coaching, like life, it's about relationships. You know, the better relationship you have with your pupils, with your family, with the players that you're coaching, the more you can help them. You know, the more you can pick up on things. Maybe things aren't right, and when things are right, it's great as well to kind of be part of that as well. But everything's about relationships. And one thing I would hope maybe my pupils say about me is I never go up in front of a classroom or a group of players and pretend to be something I'm not. What my kids see me is who I am. You know, and a player or a young person will pick you out right away if you try and pretend to be something you're not. And that's the best you can be, is get to know the players that you're coaching, get to know the pupils you're working with, and you'll see 100 times better rewards for everyone, for you as well. And I've learned a lot from my kids over the years as well, and they've kind of taught me a lot and made me aware of a lot of kind of different things as well. It's very much a kind of a two-way. And I'm just very lucky, very, very lucky. And my mum always said to me when I was younger, no, you work for a long time, so find something that you're passionate about and something that you love, and it might not seem like work. And I'm very lucky that I get to combine both my teaching that I love with the coaching kind of side of things that I love as well.
Talk to us about the coaching then. What got you into the actual football coaching? You're a PE teacher.
Yeah. That's
your day job, if you can call it a day job and differentiate. But you're also a coach. Talk to us about your coaching.
I probably kind of realised quite young, I started doing my first bit of coaching about 18, and for the early 20s I probably realised, you know what, I'm probably going to be a better coach than I am player. I was very, very lucky that I'd had my dad coached a lot of teams when I was younger, and he was probably my first kind of coaching idol because I learned a lot from him initially. And so I started coaching from an early age, probably about 18 or so. I kind of started helping my dad with a couple of drills, etc., and his kind of training nights, and then just kind of went from there. Probably started kind of more so when I was in Canada. So I worked with kind of Burlington Club out there. I started with the younger ones. Before I'd been out there, I'd done a couple of kind of coaching certificates here, but I'd done more when I was in Canada, and that's probably when I really kind of started to get kind of stuck into it. I'd worked with the kind of younger age groups, kind of 10s, 14s. I'd assisted with a few of the women's teams, the kind of 19s and the 21s, and it was just coaching's like anything else. You can do the courses, you can read the books, but until you're in there and actually doing it, that's when you learn about yourself, and that's when you really learn how to do the job. Same as most jobs, especially teaching. So I started to get kind of really more and more kind of passionate about that, and I was kind of lucky, obviously, having my dad's kind of background. He'd coached teams, I think, since he was about 12, 14 and kind of Springburn growing up and kind of things like that. And my mum's very much always something, you want to do something, you go out and do it. So it was a fantastic support that I had from them. So the more I kind of did teams, I came back here, ended up being a community coach with Celtic when I came in, so kind of going in to the schools and kind of delivering sessions. And anyone who's done those type of sessions knows that's a steep learning curve when you get 30 screaming primary 1-year-olds in a small gymnasium. You learn a lot about yourself with coaching there. But to me, it's part of the groundwork. You don't go in at a straight kind of level, especially somebody perhaps like me who's not had the playing career and has that kind of opportunities for you. So it's definitely a great kind of apprenticeship. Kind of worked my way through. I'm very lucky. Friends of mine from school that we'd played with Rob Roy youth team together again that my dad had taken, and we ended up starting the amateur team, Cutting Thistle Amateurs. We had a great few years, and we were working with friends that you've had for years, and we did well. We get back-to-back promotions all the way up, and again, it's just a different way of coaching amateur players. No guys that you're getting once or twice a week, guys who have got full-time jobs, and it's a different type of coaching. Amongst that, I was with Partick Thistle for 5 years. And kind of working in their youth academy at different kind of age groups as well. And then kind of later years after that, I kind of stopped doing the amateurs a wee bit. It takes up a lot of your time, as Jim will kind of know. It can be very easy 4 or 5 nights a week, all days at the weekend, but you're talking to your coaches about team selections, etc. And I kind of decided, you know what, I need a break, and I think it's important to do that. Excuse me, important to do that any career, but I felt maybe I was getting a bit flat, maybe a wee bit, and wanted to get some new ideas. So I deliberately took a year out just to go visit people and watch people. I had completed my B licence just before that out, and I went to Ireland out to do that, and was lucky enough to learn fantastic things. A lot of good friends out there that I'm still in touch with. Damien Duff was doing his B licence at the time. Worked out well for him, obviously, where he's ended up. He was good coach, really nice guy as well, in the times that I kind of got to chat with him. Stephen Hunt as well, a fantastic career down south, kind of Reading, etc., Irish International. He was a real inspiration because he was one of the players you always kind of hoped that you would be. There would be kids kind of standing, waiting, watching, and he would have all the time in the world for them. He would open the boot and literally empty his boot of any training gear, and I love seeing players do that because I know what it meant to me as a fan, and particularly as a child. And it was great being able to sit with these guys, and there was guys in there, Thomas Butler as well, and the guys in there who'd worked under like Roberto Martinez, and you was able to sit down and say, okay, for me as a coach, what is the first thing that you realise when they walk into the dressing room, and what worked best for you? And I remember Thomas actually telling a story with Martinez. He says he would never scream and shout at you. Never scream and shout at you. He said, but if you lost a game and you hadn't performed as well as you could, when he looked at you just felt as if you'd let him down, and that was like the worst feeling. And that was interesting to me because I take that story kind of further on. When I was kind of doing the break a wee bit, I also went and did my A licence, and doing that in Scotland. And again, that was the people that you meet are fantastic in these courses, and it maybe develops you more almost than the actual course itself.
Yeah,
it's the contact.
Yeah.
The contacts that you meet, and you're watching different people's sessions. You get a chance to talk firsthand to players with fantastic experience, like Darren O'Dea, who's now obviously back at Celtic. He did his A licence. I never got a chance to kind of chat with him or work with him that, but I've since heard him speak, and he's somebody who's so focused and so determined that he'll push on from the under-18s. I believe that. But like, so James McFadden was on that course, and He's a former pupil of the school that I now work at, so I'd heard a lot about him. He's a hero there. But he was fantastic to talk to. Again, a great professional. He did a wee video for my football team in the school and the kids, and chance to talk to these guys is brilliant. I was partnered up with Don Cowie, again, who's had a fantastic career, no Scottish internationalist down south. He's just taken a coaching position at Ross County. He was he's an excellent coach, you know, and again, just being able to work. Because of the alphabet, pretty much, we ended up working together, paired up, and we delivered a lot of sessions. It was great to kind of chat with him, and you learn so much. Oh no, we did this at training with the first team, and I never thought of that. And Joe Carter, another one as well, who's now at Partick Thistle, and you make great friendships, but you learn so much from these guys, which was fantastic. And so kind of coming back out the A-lessons, I always ran the football academy in school. I always had the kids, my seniors in training in the mornings before school, which a lot of people said was impossible, but the boys were brilliant. They came in and they trained. You know, they were in there about 7 o'clock in the morning, twice a week. We would have them training. It was all about promoting, and it's a lot of similarities when I hear Jim kind of talking to his boys before about the Johnstone Academy. It wasn't just about making them better at football. It was trying to teach them a lot of things, you know, timekeeping skills and things like that, and how to be, you know, just to be good people. And they would turn up in the morning. The training was brilliant. We would have a healthy breakfast. You know, the boys paid like £2 a week, and we'd have all cereals and fruit out. And the best part of that whole thing was the breakfasts, because you would sit around the table and you would hear what they were up to at the weekend. Sometimes didn't want to hear, but you heard all these wonderful stories. And we talk about relationships. That's how you build relationships with your players, and you get to know them. And we went on for strength. And I remember we had our own wee Invincible season one year with the team, and it was brilliant. And that's when James McFadden did that video for us. It was brilliant. So I've always kind of done that in the school. So I've been lucky that I've seen like the school football, I've done amateur football, I've done pro youth football, and now I kind of accepted a role to come back in at Celtic, and I'm working with the women's reserve team. Again, a good group of coaches, and the quality of player there is fantastic. Like, I'm working now with players who are training with the first team now, and players who are internationalists, players who have came through the academy. Their work rate and attitude, and any kind of player who's maybe a previous player of mine will tell you, I like my teams to be fit. It's always done with the ball, but I like to be fit, so I will push my players quite a lot. High standards always, and they've risen to every challenge I've kind of put in for them so far. And it was good to come into the women's game. You know, it's finally kind of starting to get the recognition it's kind of taken off, and I'm probably in a lucky position. I see firsthand the obstacles that female in sport are up against, and it's horrendous. You know, the viewpoints from the wider public, a lot of which kind of does come from our media, etc., is so negative. It's unbelievable. Mm-hmm. It's so old style opinions. It's heartbreaking, and I see a lot of young females turned away from sport and school because they don't want to be associated with things that are getting said. And they don't have enough role models, female role models. You're starting to see it now. One of the best people that talks on sport is Alex Scott, former England international. She's fantastic. The women need more people like that. And people say, oh, but the game's not as good as the men's game. And, well, you need to step back and ask yourself why. The women's game hasn't had years and years and years of millions and millions of pounds thrown at it to be developed. You know, it's only now recently they're getting a small handful of money put at it. So it's interesting now to see it getting more exposure, and it's great that can obviously Celtic, and I know Jim's kind of looking to do things as well. And it's, you know, why shouldn't we? You know, when I worked in Canada, they maybe have a different approach where in the schools the male athletes and the female athletes I found were kind of viewed the same. You know, if you were a female football player of the year, you got the same respect as the male football player of the year I got. And I just think that's so important for a nation's health, and approach to sport in general is so important. So
absolutely. We started off our discussion, PJ, with a wee insight into your knowledge of Cambodia and where you got that from, and we're going to speak about that in a moment. Before we go and talk about your experience of Cambodia, do you feel that in your lifetime or in the not too distant future we will ever see a female coaching a men's football team? Good question.
Do I think we'll ever see it? I think we will at some point, and I think it will maybe come through kind of the lower leagues. You know, you saw the female coming in as linespeople and as to officiate games. That was a big step. You know, I'm always a great believer at whatever your background, whoever you are, male, female, race, anything, if you're good enough, you should get the opportunity. And female coach comes through, and there's a lot of good female coaches out there, and I certainly hope they get their opportunity. You may see it may start, junior level, maybe amateur level, and it will be a process to kind of building up, but it will only start with attitudes being changed, and the media's, in my opinion, has got a lot to kind of do for that, particularly for the young females coming up through sport this now. They need that positive role model. They need to not feel intimidated about what guys or different people are going to say about them because they're into sport. You know, I see it firsthand and it's heartbreaking, and we do lose a lot of young people to different sports because of that. Although I would say in the last kind of 6 months or a year or so ago, there is a shift starting to happen, and you are seeing more females now starting to get involved, which is good. And if you were to ask me as a PE teacher, and it would be interesting to hear other people's viewpoints, I think across the board, who's more talented at sport, males or females? I would say the females are edging it right now in terms of, I'm starting to see a real kind of shift there, which is interesting to see. So we'll see how that develops. Maybe one point in the future.
Well, what I see as young, the girls when they're younger, running about the same age as the boy, some of the girls have got more talent on the ball than the young guys, but the guys progress as they get older, physical wise, etc., etc. What's your thoughts on that, PJ?
Yeah, I think especially out in Canada, I found the female players were technically stronger than their male counterparts. Over here, I find technically females are very strong as well. But as a whole, kind of coming up, you touched on it earlier when you said distractions. There's so many distractions now, and that's why we've got a lot of problems with young people being so fit kind of now. And from a PE point of view, I can tell you right away from watching a class for 10 minutes what young person has been involved in any type of sports club. Yeah. Whether it's a dance club, a football club, because they are outgoing. They've got improved social skills. They've obviously got improved hand-to-eye coordination. They're more outgoing. They're more willing to take on leadership roles. So all these things, and I can spot it in 10 minutes to the young people that perhaps have never been to a sports club or joined a sports club and that type of thing. And that's paramount. It's absolutely huge. You know, being part of a club is so much more than becoming a better footballer or becoming a better dancer. It's everything that goes with it. You know, if you had anything to say to a parent or anyone in charge of looking after a young person, it's just taking them. Don't need to be the best, don't need to be the greatest, and just go there and learn everything that you can possibly learn from sport. You know, it's very, very obvious, and being in the position I am, I can see it at kind of all age groups, you know, kind of S1 to S6, and then outside as well with the different teams I've worked with. So
I think there's a real attitude where people take things for granted because, you know, we've got them, they're there and we take it for granted at times, and that can happen with kids, with sport, with football. You've had an experience or two experiences where the kids didn't take anything for granted, and that takes us back to the original point that we made when we started speaking today, PG, about Cambodia. Talk to us about your experience of being able to take your passion for coaching, your interest in the Cambodia story that you were already aware of, and bringing that all together.
Yeah, so like I said, myself and Graham Diamond, anybody that knows Graham will know he's one of my closest friends, and he's one of the best coaches I've ever worked with. You know, he's taken my level of coaching to a whole kind of different level. He's obviously been involved with Jimmy Johnstone Academy as well, and basically he was working with Celtic at the time, and he'd recommended me to the international programme. So with Celtic, you know, they kind of send coaches all over to the kind of their partner clubs, kind of worldwide, etc. And me and Graham we'd actually went to Australia before for 2 weeks, and we did a bit of coaching out there with some of the clubs out there. And in 2017, we had the chance to go to Cambodia. It was a different kind of initiative. The person that was setting it up, it wasn't a direct partnership with Celtic, but they kind of paid Celtic for us to go out. And I'll be honest, other than the kind of book I'd mentioned earlier, I was probably similar. I reread the book again to refresh myself with the history, etc., going out there and really looking forward to it without really knowing what to expect. And it did end up being an incredible 10 days where we did everything from press conferences, TV interviews, radio interviews, working with professional teams, international players over there, to working with international squads as well, to working with a lot of the kind of different charities over there as well. And this is where the link with the Indochina Starfish Foundation is, if anybody wants to look them up, They're a school, it's a charity-based school, and it's all based around football. And then basically a lot of their kids basically will come in the morning, do their school, and then it's all football in the afternoon. And they go through a programme there where they learn English, because in Cambodia, if you don't speak English, you're going to find it very difficult to get any sort of job, really. And but they took us out to the school, they took us round, the kids were fantastic. We didn't get a chance at that point to kind of go into the lessons, but we met a lot of the kids, a tour of the school, and it's a good school, you know, and we thought it was fantastic. It was great to meet, and Vicheka, who is in charge of the school, said to us, you know, you've seen the school and it looks good, and we've got one or two wee modern things, but now we'd like to go and show you where these kids come from. I said, okay, yeah, brilliant. So we went in the car through a lot of kind of dirt track roads, travelled for about 20-30 minutes, and bearing in mind that's what a child walks a lot of the time to get to school there. And kids will even go to that school just at lunchtime just to get food. You know, they feed the whole community, not just the kids that go to the school. So anyway, they took us out, and if you picture a kind of dirt track road with a row of kind of shacks almost as kind of people's homes, and we went up a wee kind of small kind of alleyway into what was a graveyard. Now the graveyard, it was all dried up, you know, with a wee bit of wind, with the kind of the dust blowing about. They were sitting cooking things. I'm not even sure what there was they were cooking to eat. The kind of tin shacks is where they were kind of living. There was a couple of older people kind of just literally skin and bone without wanting to speak kind of cruelly, but literally just kind of fading away, lying on top of the kind of tombstones, etc. Animals kind of walking around with kind of the skin kind of falling off. Kids playing, jumping from tombstone to tombstone, and that's where they lived. And you kind of first walk into that and you think, get me out of here. You know, this is rude. You know, this is their home. I don't want them to feel as if we're just here just looking. And they kind of take us round and they introduce us. You know, they didn't speak a lot of English, but you're just kind of shaking hands and kind of bowing. And there was a wee kind of tiny kind of shack there that was full of books, and the school actually goes into these kind of areas and reads children's stories once a week, and they try and go in, which is brilliant. And it's probably at that moment, and me and Graham obviously are both kind of brought up in that kind of football environment where you maybe don't always want to show your emotions kind of side of things without wanting to get the abuse that you would get. But it was almost simultaneously, we just kind of walked away from the group and from each other, and the sunglasses came down to kind of cover the eyes, and you can hear a lot of people, maybe in comic relief and stuff, who talk about hitting that brick wall. We hit that brick wall, and there was no words that could describe how you kind of feel. Here you were, these people living in a graveyard. You know, it's before I went out there, I was maybe looking at a new car, a new phone, and you feel horrible. You genuinely feel so guilty for yourself, and yet here are these kids jumping from tombstone to tombstone with not a care in the world, happier than the kids at home that have got an eye this and an eye that. And it is the moment that will live me for the rest of my life, and it's probably the moment that drove us on to kind of go on to the kind of next part that we'd done. But that moment was incredible, and we actually we kind of left, and we went in the car and we drove back to where we were staying. It was about 2 or 3 hours, and we didn't say a word. You couldn't say a word. If you tried to speak, we'd have just broken down. And we kind of get back, and you go back in the hotel room, and the group kind of came back with us, and eventually we kind of said to them, you know, thanks for kind of showing us that. And we actually said to them, can we ask you a question? He says, why do they live in a graveyard, and why choose the graveyard? And they said, well, we asked them this a few times before, and the response that they gave us was, well, they stay in the graveyard because the only thing that they have in life is each other. So by staying in the graveyard, even when they lose one of them, they'll still be close to them in the graveyard.
Amazing.
And that, you know, you're gone again at that point, you know, and that speaks a lot about Cambodian culture. They are so family orientated. Everything is for the family. You know, if a young person goes out to work, it's for the family. If they leave school to go to work, it's for the family and everything. And if that story doesn't touch your heart, I'm not sure what would. And it was the most poignant moment of that trip. And I say it was the driver for kind of the next stage of that kind of that we done.
Touching and emotional video before we started doing the podcast of your second trip to Cambodia. Please share with us your experience of how football can make such a massive difference to the lives of these wee kids over in Cambodia who have got less than nothing.
Phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal, the power of football, and anybody that works in football, involved in football, will be aware that football can change the world, in my opinion, because there's no language required. All you need is a ball, and you're sorted. When we came back from that trip, me and Graham, we were heartbroken to leave, and we were so adamant that we were doing something. That can't just be it. You don't just come back from that experience and go back to normal. So we came back and we said, look, let's just leave it a couple of weeks. Let's not jump in. Let's see if we're still as strong and we still want to do something. And I think we left it 2 days and we were on the phone every day for about an hour at a time. What we're going to do. So I'd done a charity kit drive before through the school for Mary's Meals. I thought, let's do a charity kit drive. You know, they have a lack of shoes, a lack of any kind of footwear. So let's go for boots. Let's go for tops. You know, let's go for any kind of sports equipment we get. And without probably sitting down and putting a proper plan in place, we just went ahead and, you know, I started it in school. You know, I'm lucky again, I've got access to, you know, kind of 600 kids and who were fantastic. My kids at Turnbull were fantastic. You know, they were bringing in boots galore every day, bags of Celtic strips, boots still in boxes. And it just kept coming. And with Graham's contacts that we had as well, and football stuff just kept coming in, and it was coming and coming. And before we knew it, it was astounding. People I hadn't spoke to for years had seen stuff that I'd put in social media and were asking to drop things off at the house. A former pupil, you saw in the video, Rebecca Hill, who had went in and took so much kit off of Rosvale and Bishop Briggs, and it just kept coming and coming. And so we had to start thinking about how are we going to get this? What's the next part of the plan? How do we get this over here? And so we looked in at getting the kit, and it was going to be extortionate to kind of fly it over, because we ended up with something over 500 football tops, almost close to 200 pairs of football boots, and all sorts of other bits, games, things, everything that we would take for granted. But so we got from there, and it was per chance, literally almost by chance, that obviously Graham and Jim were friends for many years, and Graham phoned me and he says, "You're not going to believe this." I said, what? He says, "I've just bumped into Jim," and he was asking, we were just chatting, getting along, and Jim has heard about what we're doing, and he thinks it's fantastic, it's brilliant. He would love a Jimmy Johnstone Academy to be involved. And I was like, absolutely brilliant. I'd not met Jim at this point, and obviously I'd known about the Jimmy Johnstone Academy, and so he said, "Come on down and we'll have a chat." And of course you walk into the home of Jimmy Johnstone Academy, and as a Celtic supporter, you're mind blown. You know, this is how you picture your house looking. And we sat down with Jim, and I think we chatted for about 3 or 4 hours. And again, if you know Jim, that's a short conversation. But it was brilliant. He was desperate, asking all the questions you were asking, and desperate. You know, he's obviously so proud of Jimmy Johnstone, what it stands for, and obviously wanted to make sure that it would meet his expectations. But I think we both have those high expectations in life, and it was very kind of similar. And straight away, he was like, "Yeah, you know, we're in. What can Jimmy Johnstone do to help you?" And at this point, you know, you couldn't wipe the smile off my face. Not only were we doing this, but we were involved with Jimmy Johnstone as well. And so we started to put the plan in action. You know, we started to kind of price things. Okay, what would it cost here? What would it cost there to do it this and do it that way? And how are we going to get all this kit over to these kids? And we were very lucky. One of the person that we met was Cashel Gleeson, was the Deputy British Ambassador at the time. We met him over the first time, and we said maybe he knows somebody that maybe does a deal in getting the kit flown over or something like that. And we phoned him, I just out the blue, and I says, "Look, you may or may not remember me." And he's like, "PJ, I absolutely remember you, leave it with me." And in all seriousness, about 2 hours later, he got back to me. He says, "PJ, I've sorted it." He says, "If you guys can get that kit down to London, I will fly that out on the British Embassy's plane for you, and that'll get delivered to me, and I'll be here waiting for you." And at that point, you're just like, yeah, it's the power of football. You know, he's a big West Ham fan. He's a gentleman. He's an absolute gentleman. How much we loved him. We even got him a signed Jeff Hurst picture to take over, which was heartbreaking to buy, but just as a thank you, we kind of got that for him going over. And we came back, we're like, "Jim, look, we've done this." And Jim's like, "That, not a problem." He says, "Get all the gear over here." So if you remember the day, my brother helped me as well. We took carloads of this kit, because I'd been storing it in school, I'd been hiding it in school, and carloads, and there was Jim there loading it into one of the big, where he keeps all the goals and stuff into there. And And Jim himself actually volunteered to drive this down to London for us off his own back, and it was incredible. I'd done all the paperwork and everything, because obviously big strict procedure and everything, and so he was nervous the whole day because one bit of paperwork's wrong. You know, Jim's done a drive to London that he's going to be a disaster, and it turns out, you'll probably tell it better than me, when he got there, they said they had no record of it, etc. But if you know Jim, his gift of the gab is one way of putting it, and he managed to get it. You managed to get it in, and we managed to get the kit over, and from there, Jimmy Johnstone basically sponsored the whole trip. They said basically, look, just plan it. We want to be involved. We want to spread the word of Jimmy Johnstone. And as a Celtic supporter, I remember sitting down with Jim, and he said, you know, you'll be representing Jimmy Johnstone there, and how can you not be touched by that? You know, to even add even more emotion to it. And Jimmy Johnstone's probably like some of the Lions, and I never got to meet him. I never got to see him play, but I've seen the videos, I've seen the DVDs, I've seen the clips, I've seen the interviews. I've heard the stories from my dad, from my granddad, people like Jim. Show me a Celtic supporter that doesn't feel that Jimmy Johnstone is just, you knew him, he was part of the family. And Jim always says, you know, Jimmy Johnstone isn't just ours, Jimmy Johnstone is everyone's. And honestly, the pride going out there with that badge was phenomenal. And you learned a lot about the academy, and Jim said, no, a big part of building this academy and what Jimmy wanted was for the game of football to be given to people that might struggle to get into the game of football or to have access to the game of football. And that struck a chord right away, because I thought, this is exactly what we're trying to do here. This is, and you talk about the power of football uniting, and we had everything in place, and the academy and the charitable trust took care of all the flights, the travel, you know, the travel when we were over there and getting round, and it wouldn't have happened without them. And, you know, we've done a video as a thank you, and we've said thank you to Jim, but if you know him, he doesn't take thank you. He's no interest in it for that. But it's so much appreciated. It was unbelievable. But to be out there and doing that with the Jimmy Johnstone was incredible.
A massive thank you to PJ Corr for sharing his experiences in part one of what will be a 2-part Celtic State of Mind special, all about PJ's tour to Cambodia to change lives through football. And he did that with a great friend of his called Graham Diamond, who will also be joining us for part 2. Both Graham and PJ will share their experiences of working with some of the most underprivileged kids in the world and how football can really make a difference to their lives. Join us for part 2 of PJ Corr with Celtic State of Mind. A Celtic State of Mind has been named as one of 7 finalists in the Best International Podcast category at this year's Football Content Awards. We won the Best Football Podcast Award in 2018, and it is a real achievement to be finalists once again. Thank you all for your ongoing support over the last 3 years. If you have been enjoying our daily content, then feel free to vote for a Celtic State of Mind at footballcontentawards.com. I have added the link to the bio of this episode, and the instructions and further links are also on axom.net. You can also vote on Twitter by simply tweeting I am voting for @AxomPod in @the_FCAs for #BestPodcast. Thank you again for all your support.